The staffing and recruiting market is set to go to 1.5 trillion by 2031. If you're thinking of getting a piece of that pie, you're definitely in a good place. Staffing and recruiting is a low risk, low barrier to entry, and high profit potential opportunity that is excellent for new entrepreneurs. In fact, I'm not aware of any opportunity in this world that is better to start up than staffing and recruiting as your first business. And at 7-Figure Staffing, we've been helping folks launch, grow, and scale their business in this industry for the last 7 years and have been part of dozens of 7- and 8-figure success stories. Through that experience, we have come to know a thing or two about how to launch the right way, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. So let's break this down step by step. Step 1, start with a niche that you want to target. Doesn't make sense to start out competing with the big generalist agencies. The best way to compete with them is to not compete with them. A great way to select your niche is by using my 4 conjoined circles framework for determining general niche focus. Now, using these 4 circles is not going to completely help you refine your niche, but the framework is going to help you do the initial testing and discovery to determine how you can narrow down the niches that you should focus on. So first, let's start with your interest. What industries interest you? What are you passionate about? Passion is a solid component for sustainability. I would say that this is something that makes your niche stronger, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a deep pre-existing passion for something. Interest could simply mean that the opportunity excites you and you can see yourself becoming interested in the industry. Next is expertise and experience. Now again, this also isn't mandatory, but having a background in the industry can accelerate your success, as you can imagine, for obvious reasons. Having said that, extremely successful recruiting professionals have no prior background in their niche in many cases. So this is not a required prerequisite, but it's a nice to have. Next is momentum and pain. So this one is a non-negotiable. You want to look for industries experiencing growth, but that also have talent shortages. So where is the investment flowing? What industries are hiring? What companies are paying outside firms to solve hiring problems for them? Next is the candidate strategy. This is also a non-negotiable. Can you repeatedly attract candidates in this space? If not, rethink your niche. Candidate supply is key. We have to know how we're going to access the candidates for your niche. Once you have determined a broad space or category that makes sense to work within according to the framework we've just discussed, then you want to start looking for a more refined sub-niche or sub-industry. What you're looking for is a large enough market to support you, but with a small enough scope so that hardly any other recruiter ever thought of servicing this sub-niche. There would be lots specializing in the wider industry, but perhaps not the specific sub-industry. And a really quick way you can look for momentum in a category is by simply doing searches on LinkedIn Jobs. The reason why it's best to do it on LinkedIn Jobs is because number 1, they have a lot of jobs, and number 2, they have ways you can filter the companies who are posting the jobs. You can simply test out titles and have a look at the results in terms of numbers of jobs posted in a given time frame. So you can get a really good sense for whether or not there is momentum and demand in a particular industry. For example, if we look up full stack engineer, we can see here there were 1,450 in the last 7 days. If we look up physical therapist, there are 28,556 posted in the last 7 days. Now, obviously these numbers don't tell the whole story. It doesn't necessarily mean that physical therapy is a better niche than software engineers, although we have a pretty strong reason to look very seriously at physical therapy given what we're seeing right here. Personally, just based on these numbers alone, this is a niche that I would want to potentially test further. Also, here's a candidate strategy that you might not think of. It has nothing to do with finding all your candidates on LinkedIn, Indeed, or ZipRecruiter. Sometimes a good strategy is to just sell what you can find, rather than trying to find and attract what you cannot find and attract. Let me give you an example, a very practical example. My recruiting business specialized in architecture architectural building companies. My value proposition was that I had a network of and could find people specialized and with experience in glass wall and building envelope. Basically just the exterior of commercial high-rise developments. But here's the problem. I didn't really have these people, LOL. The amount that I could find could probably be counted on two hands. I could find almost nobody that I thought I would be able to find. In the entire 2 or 3 years before our business was acquired, I probably only found 10 people who actually had meaningful experience from the industry. So what did I do? I gave the clients the people who I could find. I would consult and educate the clients so that they would become more flexible about requirements. At the end of the day, they cannot force the market to produce the people they think they are looking for. They have to be realistic, and I happen to be their greatest insight into their own market. Because nobody else does what I do. This is the ultimate beauty of having such a deep and targeted niche. No other recruiter in the region ever thought to specifically focus on this relatively small group of companies. Your client's sources for hiring information are relatively limited. They're going to depend on you for that information, and that works highly in your favor. So hopefully this is giving you a little bit more valuable insight into how this game is played. If I'm the only one specializing in this niche, then I'm the only one who knows what's available. This means I have a much better chance of being able to place who I can find rather than having to go on impossible wild hunts for candidates that don't really exist. Instead, I'm going to tell them who they can get. And I made a living off of doing this. Remember, the niche thing is primarily a marketing play. It gets you in the door. Once you're in the door, you become their consultant and you place who you can get, and you get really good at selling that placement to your decision maker. Step 2, test niche traction. Now it's time to find out 2 things. Thing 1, is there demand for the talent in the niche that you have selected? Thing 2, is there enough of an appetite to pay outside recruiters to supply talent for this niche? I like to keep this step extremely simple. Essentially, you're just going to go around asking people if they need a particular profile of talent. You're going to be like, hey, I got these peeps. You need them? That's pretty much your pitch. Very easy to remember. And then they're basically going to say one of a few things. Yes, we need them. Send a resume. No, we don't need them. What are your fees and your terms? All of these responses start a good conversation. If they're looking for a resume, this leads to a conversation where we can discuss our service. If they don't need the people we pitched, we can segue the conversation into talking about the type of talent they do need. If they ask us our fees and terms, this is the best type of lead because it shows that they know that we are providing a service and they are presumably willing to consider paying for that. Step 3, proof of concept. When you start finding a lot of companies willing to pay your fees for placements that you are able to make consistently, you have what's called a proof of concept. This is where you refine your niche in light of recent success and you double down on a strategy that works. In other words, you find a group of fish buyers who like to buy lots of fish, and those fish they like to buy are ones that you know how to find and catch consistently. Step 4, go all in and double down on your brand and your web presence. So now you might as well throw your best effort behind your web presence and your market positioning. Now's the time to plant your flag in your little corner of the market. You have a proof of concept and you feel extremely confident that you can keep filling the orders for more companies who fit into the sweet spot of your niche. So now you're going to scale your efforts to market to these companies and also scale your ability to deliver your services to them. That is the high-level guide to how to launch your agency. But now you might be thinking, okay, great. That gives me a good overview, but I feel like there's some gaps that I need to fill in. And that might be true, but there might be less gaps than you think. So if you still have some questions, do me a favor, go below and ask your question in the comments, and I will either respond with a detailed answer to your question, or I will make a separate video to answer your question. Or there's a good chance that your answer is in one of these other videos on the channel. And if not, it's definitely in one of the videos I'll be making soon. So go ahead and like and subscribe and click that bell thingy, and that way I can answer all your questions. See you then.